Hi, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chats. Today is September 12th. Um, we are on our 201st. Last week was 200. This is our 201st IC Topic Chat. That's mind-blowing. I think I'm going to say that from now until the end of time. But someday we'll be saying that today's our 1,000th, whatever. I'm just going to say it every time. Anyway, this is exciting. We are doing a core topic. A core topic is a topic that we repeat every year. So in September every year, we do something on hiring or finding somebody to help you out, whether it be a subcontractor, a full-time employee, a grad assistant, where I'm going to talk about my experiences with those things. And as we do with the AIC Topic Chats, I record the session, but just the part where I'm kind of sharing my information. It's a bit like a roundtable, and so I'm going to discuss what I've learned and my experiences and what I've researched and found out about it today, the core topic of hiring. And then I will stop the recording and then we're going to just chat about it. And people will share their experiences, they'll ask their questions, and we'll see where it goes. And if we get bored, we'll talk about our pets or, I don't know, holidays or something interesting. We usually stay on topic actually, but that's how that goes. So if you're watching this on YouTube, and you ever want to join us, we do have, I think, a pretty rich conversation that happens outside of the session that you'll see with me presenting right now. Well, let's get into it. So this is a session I've done several times, and I'll add probably some more commentary because of just experiences that I've had in the past year, but it is more or less the same material. I like to talk about these 5 different types of support. We talk about interns, pro bono, practicum. We're going to talk about the opportunity to hire a graduate assistant and why you might want to do that. And with all these, I'm going to give pros and cons. Subcontracts, which is a very big part of what people do here with the kind of work that we do, where we get contracts and we subcontract to others. The opportunity for part-time employees and different kind of varieties of part-time employees too. I've got some different ideas there. And then the big jump into whether you want to bring on a full-time employee and what that means, benefits and all those considerations that happen along those lines. So let's start with interns, pro bono, student practicum. So oftentimes we have an opportunity to work with interns, people who are in their early stages, or a student practicum, people who might be working in a class and they want to do, they need to do an evaluation for somebody, or they might be in an evaluation course, or maybe they're thinking about getting into program evaluation and they want to do something with you. They don't want to be paid. Couple ideas. The pro here is that this is for you to be focused on a commitment to their individual development, right? That contribution may or may not be valuable to you as a firm. So if you're looking for somebody to slot in and get some work done, you may, it'll be a bit of a risk on whether any of these folks are going to be great. You may want to use this as an opportunity to develop future talent who could come in and work for you as a subcontractor or something like that, or you feel connected to this individual. That's great. I think and you should probably be doing that, but don't do it with the idea that you have to get work done and you're just going to give them a project and you're going to leave them alone, because these are people who need likely a lot of hand holding. They need a lot of direction and instruction. It's an important thing to give back to the field. I do want to say, if you're thinking about the true intern structure, I think it's unethical to not pay them, particularly if you're going to ask them to do quite a bit of work. And we usually bring up this comes up in conversation. If it's pro bono, you want to outline it very specifically, meaning they're doing it for free for a specific period of time, and their benefit is that experience. That is not the sort of person you bring in and have them grabbing lunch for you and picking up your, dry cleaning, I guess is the old thing that people used to do. A pro bono person, and pretty much in all of these situations, if they're coming in, they're committing their time for, nothing or very low wages for the idea of getting experience within your field. You should be giving them those specific experiences. So be ethical and appropriate about these sorts of things. Oh, I see it. It's right there. Unpaid internships may be illegal. Now, graduate assistants are maybe a step up from that. Graduate assistants usually, now this is actually an interesting strategy. You can reach out to your local university and check in with different types of academic departments. For me, it's been psychology is where I've worked. I've also seen it. We also have had grad assistants from sociology. And we've had mixed success with these, and this is pretty much the same thing everybody will tell you. You'll find mixed success with graduate assistants. A graduate assistant, the pro is that it's very inexpensive relative to hiring a person, even a part-time person, because you're going to be setting up a contract with the institution. The institution will take care of all the payroll and the insurance for that person and all those things. You basically set up that flat amount. Oftentimes it's at a less amount than what it would cost you to hire a person, or even it's less amount than what they're paying the individual, particularly since they're often getting a tuition remission, or they don't have to pay for their tuition. They see this as a benefit in the same way you might see a student intern. So that's could be a great advantage to you because it could be a low cost person. Again, this is a bit like the last situation where you're dealing with an intern. This is a person who's going to be committed to you probably for at least a semester, more likely for an academic year or even a calendar year, usually starting in August, like would have started last month, and going around through next July or through next May. These are folks usually who have little skill set specific to the work that we do. They may have raw talent, but they're going to need a lot of direction. And frankly, they're not necessarily going to be committed to your practice. They may be, but they're oftentimes first priority is their classes and what they're in school to do. And if your program evaluation work is not specific to their interests, they're probably just going to come in, get their work done, and go and do their thing. Now, several of our folks who work with us now have been grad assistants, either for us or for projects that worked for us, and they found passion about our work, and they're part of our team now. And so those are wonderful ways to kind of grow talent from within and support those folks, and see how they can grow within your practice. And so we've been very happy at Goshen with that. But it's not it's a crapshoot, I guess is the way you put it. You're not always sure what you're going to get. Subcontracts. I've got wow, I'm looking at my notes from the last time we met. The subcontract idea is very prominent. A lot of you guys probably are here because you were looking for subcontracts, or you have too much work and you're looking to give a subcontract to a person. So I mean, literally here at this meeting today, and that's a good thing because that's how you do it. You connect with one another. Now, the subcontract idea is this is an opportunity. So we look at subcontracts as an opportunity to give somebody a trial if we're thinking about bringing them on full time. And they often know that. That's not usually a secret. But sometimes, we start people as a subcontract and they're very interested and they want to come work for us. But I think most of you guys are interested in having your own independent operations and working with other people who have their own independent operations, and you are better by working together. So in a typical situation, an experienced consultant who kind of has a lot of experience working with different types of clients, the clients reach out, hey, do you have capacity to do this type of a project? And the answer is probably no, if it was just based upon their time, but the answer is oftentimes yes, because I know I can tap into this pool of people that are out there that don't know about said opportunity, right? And so they make that contract, and then they reach out and they start interviewing people to do subcontract work to help them out. So for us, the key idea is we look at it as a trial or some sort of a specialized support because somebody has a specific skill. What it is great is you can say, hey, here's $10,000 to do this thing that makes sense for me. And I know the project is worth $50,000. I'm going to do the lion's share of the work, but I could really use your help kind of cleaning the data or doing this data collection piece or doing focus groups, or I'm great at quantitative and you're great at qualitative. So can you do that kind of work? So that's the kind of focused delivery. And this is nice too from the primary contractor perspective, because it's a temporary financial obligation, meaning I'm going to give you $10,000 to do this thing. It's an important thing. It's not, I'm going to hire you and pay you from now until the end of time, and you are reliant on me as your employer. So that's that. Relationships are different than an employee. There's a lot of notes about what makes a subcontractor versus or a contractor versus an employee. And you want to make sure you're paying attention to what that looks like in your state. You may still have some tax withholding obligations. I put that in here because I think people have made that point in the past. In certain states, I think California, people can put this in the chat if you want to about the California story, but there's definitely rules to making sure you identify somebody as a subcontractor. And when you put together a subcontracting relationship, you're going to want to have a contract, but within that contract, you want to make sure you're outlining how this person is in fact a subcontractor, and that they are fully independent of you. You're giving them money to do a thing that's very specific to their skill set. You're not expecting them to show up from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, sort of a thing. That would be an employee. You're not giving them a lot of specific direction. They have independence. These are sorts of things that would be outlined there. Thanks, Becky. I just saw the ABC test. So if you don't know what that is, ask about that, particularly in the chat. So we actually do have a couple of subcontractors. We have one person who was an employee who wanted to kind of have more independence in her work, and she had a very specific thing she does, and so she's definitely made sense to subcontract. And we didn't want to have to keep her hours, and she didn't want to have to report them because she got her job done, and that was fine. And she's in a different place than most. And then we had a very specific project that came up. None of our staff could handle it, and I had a very talented individual who was available, and so we plugged her in, and it's been a great relationship there. But mostly we work through employees, with people who we bring on as full-time employees. Some people will call subcontractors 1099 people, or that meaning that's the federal, within the US anyway, that's the federal document that you give to a subcontractor at the end of the year, indicating how much money that you've paid them over the period of the year, which is also the amount that you're sharing with the federal government, so the federal government can come after them for their taxes. Fun times. But anyway, we probably should stop calling people by tax document number. That's kind of weird. Seen a bunch of things in the notes. I'm not gonna repeat all this. I think I just put in a whole bunch of information that people shared before. I might go back to that if we want to get into it. One of the ways that we've our first team member, who was not me, was a part-time seasonal person, and this individual is now in a leadership role within our firm, and full-time, and loves their work, but part-time and seasonal. So this might be somebody who you want to bring in. They have another job, and they want to, or they have a lot of commitment to their family, and they want to only work a smaller amount of time. Or a seasonal person, like teachers are great for us, particularly teachers with a lot of analytical skills, who work literally as K-12 teachers through the year. They come and they would work for us during the summer. And so these can be fantastic folks, because you can find people who are skilled. They have focused delivery, meaning they have time to work on this thing, and you give them this task and they work on it. There is some commitment to the firm, but there also may not be commitment to the firm. If you're dealing with somebody who has a lot of other obligations within their life, and they're working a smaller piece of time, they may not be flexible with their hours. I can work from noon to 4, 5 days a week, and that's it. You got me from noon to 4, 5 days a week, period. Like, I can't come in at 11 to do that thing that needs to happen. So you may not have that. These folks also, since they're employees, you're going to be paying all the employee taxes that come along with this. Anything else I can think of with part-time and seasonal? But oftentimes, if you have a little project, or you have something that you need a little extra help with, when we initially hired our office manager, we hired we put it out there as a part-time person because we really didn't have a lot of budget for it. We had very specific skills that we wanted, and we figured this would be somebody who might have kids in school and want to be there to drop their kids off in the morning, and pick their kids up at night, so they'd have 4 or 5 hours during the day to come help us out. And so it didn't really work out that way, but that was kind of the idea. So we're going to get into full-time employees, but here's some interesting data. This is from the 2015 survey. So it's a little dated, about 9 years old. But if you look at people the types of firms that have more than one employee, meaning 2 or more, usually the first is, you, the owner, main person. When you look at 2 or more, typically firms that have been around for 50, you see it kind of rise when people have been around for 15 to 19 years. And so about a quarter of those firms have 2 or more employees. Really, nobody that isn't the majority. The overwhelming majority is one-person firms within our TIG, at least those people who completed the survey. So I thought that was an interesting little statistic. When we look at full-time employees, the thing that you're getting out of this on the pro column is people who are committed to your firm. This is their career. This is now something they're focused on, that they believe in, hypothetically, right? You can really develop out these individuals with programs. Like, for instance, we have different types of I'd say programs, meaning like National Science Foundation, noise projects. So we have one team member who's a specialist in that kind of grant. And so we can really develop out that program, try and find other people who might want to work with us because we've got that specialism, right? And so, and it should be an increased efficiency because now you bring people in, they are aware of how the firm works, they know how to tap into your resources, you're able to tap into them because you've got this working relationship. And so a lot of wonderful things can happen within a firm, but it's expensive, right? It's a long-term commitment. If you're going to hire somebody, the intent is for them to be around for years, right? And so that's kind of pretty heavy. Like, that's a big deal to think about that. And a lot of us get to that point where we're like, wow, do I really want to hire a person? Because like their fortunes are tied to your fortunes at this point, career-wise anyway. The expenses aren't just about their salary. I mean, obviously with the salary comes taxes. Also, you're probably going to be interested in healthcare, right? Or you should be at some point. We weren't originally, and then we found ourselves getting into that game, and we figured that out a year ago. Probably going to be talking about retirement. But there's a lot of expenses that are not necessarily, I mean, they are definitely monetary expenses, but they're not direct, they're indirect. Indirect in your own time and in coordinating them and coaching them. And forgetting that, you got to sit down and figure out an employee manual at some point so that they have direction and they understand how to succeed and what they can and can't do. Don't wear flip-flops to a client meeting. You need to put that into your manual, which we don't have because I don't think we need it, because I hope nobody wears flip-flops to a client meeting, but maybe we should put it in our employee manual. That's another conversation. But that takes time, and that time is time spent on an employee manual and not, serving your clients. And so if you hire people and you want to go down this path, realize it's going to have a very direct effect on your ability to spend time with your clients. And if that's important to you, think twice about whether you want to hire a person, because you can't just like give it to them and forget about them and everything's going to be great. There's got to be engagement there. We've done some remote work. If you want to know more about that, we can talk about that more in the chat function. So there's definitely a lot of talent out there. It adds complications because if somebody's not local and you're used to working with people physically in your office, that can be, a lot to manage, because what does that feel like, particularly if you didn't kind of, your career didn't grow in this remote thing. If you've always been in a remote setting, maybe this is very natural for you, but it takes time and a lot of effort to make sure you're engaging with those folks who are based in other parts of the country. So I know a lot of us spend some time thinking, should I go with a new employer or subcontractor when we get to a certain level? I'm going to throw this number out there. I don't know if this has any research basis. It's a number that gets thrown around a lot by people with firms. And I found some support for this, but people hire, and particularly some of the bigger firms, When I say bigger, I mean 10 plus. They often will hire when they know they've got another $150,000 in revenue. So if you're at like $1 million and you've got 5 employees or something like that, and you end up at 1,150,000, that's usually kind of a signifier. It signifies a time to probably hire another person if you feel like you need it, right? Obviously, at a certain point, people start to feel stressed. Their capacity is like they're overburdened in their capacity, and you're going to be having these questions. You should be looking at the time that they're spending on different types of projects. But that kind of rule of thumb for some firms is you hire at the next 150,000. Are you going to pay them 150,000? They'll cost that amount, but they're not necessarily going to be paid that amount, right? So figure out what the salary is based upon your market research within where you are and that sort of a thing. But you're going to have their direct salary costs. You're going to have all those other direct costs that are associated with their salary, like taxes and benefits and things like that. But you need to spend time working with that person. That's time not being reimbursed from another project. So that's why that extra amount is in there. So some portion of that, maybe the number is higher than 150 now. That may be pre-inflation, the big inflation we've seen recently. Anyway, 5.5 suggestions. So this is kind of an idea that I came up with, and it's become something that I do often, is give 5.5 ideas. This comes from Jeremy Gitomer's little black book of selling, and he called it 10.5 principles. So I like the 5.5 ideas. Alan Weiss, in his book about consulting, talks about 1 + 1 = 64. Alan Weiss, by the way, is an anti-employee. He's very pro subcontractor. He doesn't want to have any burden on his company. He wants it to be him, maybe one office manager, and then everybody else he works with is all subcontracts. Very adamant about that. When you bring people in, think about complementing, finding people who can benefit you because they're strong in certain things that you're not strong. Try and avoid redundancy. You need some redundancy because people need to be able to do the things that you do. But if you're really strong methodologists and quantitative work, probably bring somebody in who is not the exact kind of clone of you. Even if you can communicate well with that person, you need somebody who can complement your skills, not necessarily be exactly like you. Unless that's, well, anyway, know your budget. Don't get ahead of yourself with hiring people before you're ready. Ready financially, that is. I speak from personal experience. It worked out for me, but we were overcommitted when we hired our first full-time person, and it was a struggle for the first year, and it worked out, and we're much better for it. But I think we were lucky in that way too. Make sure you're spending time thoroughly vetting. Some people might, I don't know, I don't have any experience with working with a recruiter. What I mean here is use a process. The process may be thinking about how you're going to recruit people, where you're going to pull those resumes from. Like, I won't use a big web service that just reaches out to everybody. I like to work within small communities, pockets of people, to see who's interested within my immediate community, within the independent consulting community. When we hire a person, we have a hiring script when we go to interview them. And actually, I think I was just having this conversation this morning. One of the most valuable tools we've done is to give somebody a task that's similar to what we do, and we pay them for it. We give them like $500, and frankly, they're not going to get $500. We're not going to get $500 of value out of this. In fact, we're going to get zero value out of it. But it'll be a paid project to see how well they do with communication and how well they do with just kind of suffering through an analysis. And maybe it's really hard. How do they? I mean, I don't actually. The secret is I don't care if they figure out how to do it really well. If they do it, that's fantastic. That's a good sign. But if they don't figure it out, but they have a great attitude about it, and they're approaching it with a lot of humility and asking questions and want to learn from it, that's a good sign to me. If they come back and they're kind of poor with their communication, or they're just missing obvious things that they should be picking up on, that's also a good sign that maybe they're not a good fit for us. That's one of the things we do to thoroughly vet people. When you're thinking about hiring a person, it's your decision not to fire. This is something I heard, I don't know where, in one of my grad classes. But what this means is you're deciding to hire a person who has a lot of expectations about what this is going to be. It's going to be catastrophic to them if you need to fire them. And that's because you didn't do your homework to make sure they were a good fit, right? Not everybody's a great fit, and it's a great thing to move on if you have to, but you don't want to have to do that. So if you're in have an indecision, listen to that little voice. There's some indecision there, and somebody, you keep thinking maybe this isn't the right person for us. Maybe this isn't going to work out. You should probably listen to that, because it's better to work twice as hard and find the right person for a short period of time than to find somebody to come in who's terrible at the work, and then you end up having to work twice as hard anyway. And now you also have an extra problem of trying to figure out how you're going to work with this individual who's not a good fit for your firm. So that's really important. All right, so that's the end of this session. What I want you guys to do is come back every week. Here's the next sessions coming up. Goshen Consulting is going to celebrate our 15 years. We started when I signed a little paper on September 18th in 2009. So that was 15 years ago, crazy. And that's when I consider Founders Day. And so in my household, we celebrate Founders Day. Actually, usually I celebrate it, and nobody even knew what I was talking about for the first 10 years. And so recently it's become a thing. We're doing something locally here in St. Louis with the Evaluation Association of St. Louis. And we're going to bring in a speaker, very exciting. But the next day I'm going to do a session on what it means to just keep on going, what it means to do that. And I'm also going to pull a lot from Melanie Wallach's session from last week, because she talked a lot about her 40 plus years of being a independent consultant, which is also mind blowing. Anne's coming to do a session on LinkedIn. I've confirmed that with her. Another core topic in October on contracting. And what that is, it's literally about what the contracts might look like, right? How you develop contracts when you use them. We'll talk a little bit about MOUs, which, by the way, pay attention. In about 2 weeks, you're going to see a AEA 365 blog post from me about MOUs with a document there that you can download. And then you can see the other ones. I did just confirm with the ICTIG leadership that they're going to do a session on October 17th. That's the Thursday before we all head out to AEA in Portland, if you're going to make it. And they're going to talk about what it means to be involved with the TIG and the leadership. A lot of us have done that. I've been the TIG chair nearly 10 years ago. And then you can see we're going to do a spooktacular on Halloween, October 31st. I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do with that, but we usually talk about scary things about being independent consultants. And costumes are, I'll probably wear a mask or something for some period of time, just for fun. You don't have to wear a costume, but if you do, you get props for that. All right, let me stop the recording and let's get into the end. So anybody out there in YouTube land, I'll see you later, and everybody else, stick around.